name is Tori Peters. I'm an entrepreneur, artist, and the author and illustrator of the book, The Power of Words for Teens. So today I'm going to be going over how to use Copic markers. So I'm just going to give like complete basics on how to use Copics. I know that there have been like videos about this in the past from other people, but I just wanted to share like some of the things that I personally have learned from like using them recently. So I just started using Copics. I guess it's been about 6 months or so. So yeah, I found them. I started like watching videos of people like using them, and they seemed like they were really awesome. And so I wanted to like start using them. And so I bought a few markers and just started testing them out and playing with them and such. And on one of my blog posts, it's, I believe it's something about being brave, there is a picture that I drew with Copic markers, and that was like one of my first drawings from using Copics. If you want to see that, go check out my blog. It's toripeters.com. And on there, it's probably on like the second page at this point. There's a blog post with a picture that I drew using Copics. And it's of Coraline, so if you see Coraline, then you know that that's the picture I drew. That was like the first picture I drew. And so, yes, let's go ahead and jump straight into some strategies and some really important stuff to learn and to know before you start using Copics. So, let's do this. Okay, so the very first thing that you need to think about when you're going to use Copics is what kind of paper do you want to use. Copics are an alcohol-based marker, and they are a kind of marker that if you put it down and then like you let it dry and then you use another Copic over it, the marker will change colors, I guess, like it'll blend still. So one thing that you do really have to be careful about is what kind of paper you use. If you use paper that is super thin, expect it to bleed through the paper. And actually, if you use paper that's like printer paper that's that thin, then you might honestly end up like ripping through the paper if you use enough of like the marker and blend it enough. So you have to be super careful about that. I have mixed media paper here, which, let me see if I have, yeah, I used Copics for these drawings, and it worked out pretty well. And so mixed media paper is good for Copics. And then I have a marker pad. And this is bleed-proof paper, and I have used this. Some people don't like marker paper for whatever reason. I'm not entirely sure why people don't like it, but it keeps it from like bleeding through. And so if I'm going to like specifically use Copics and I know that like that's what I'm going to start off using, then I'll normally go ahead and just use this marker pad here, which is honestly, I'm enjoying it. It does bleed a little bit, but I think it's because I use a lot of the color all at once, and so a lot of times it will bleed through, but like here it didn't bleed at all. And then for this one, let's see. For this one, it bled a little bit onto the, well, not even that one, just the one behind it. This one, it bled onto the paper, like in little specks on there. But that's, I think, because of how hard I was like trying to blend the colors. So yeah, I think that was mostly just operator error for that. So, but normally these marker pads won't bleed, which is really nice. And you don't really have to worry too much about it. I used this sketchbook, and the first time that I used it, let's see, with the Copics, which is all the way, yeah, in here, if I actually used it with this to start off with, and it bled onto this other page. Here's the Coraline I was talking about. And this one, I actually skipped a page because I'm pretty sure it bled through that one as well. So you have to be, yeah, you have to be super careful when you're using these markers because they will bleed. Careful with paper. So that's really important. That's like the first thing I wanted to go over with you guys. So number 2. All right, so the other thing that we're going to talk about, if you're just beginning, these are the colors that I personally started off with. I wanted to go with primary colors because I knew that since the way that these markers are, that they work, that I could blend colors and they would turn out to be, I could do just about any color with the rainbow with these 3 colors. So here are the numbers that I have. So we have a Y08, which I chose, and I believe it's pretty standard yellow right there. So I chose a B16, which is cyan blue. The Y08 is acid yellow, it says, and then the R24 prawn. Those are the 3 colors that I personally started off with and honestly really liked. I think they worked really well, especially if you're just a beginner and you don't want to spend like a whole bunch of money on these markers because they are expensive. And yeah, these are the perfect colors to go ahead and start out with. If you want to grab a green in there as well, you could totally do that. I didn't. These are literally, I just bought 3 markers. And yeah, they worked really well and they were exactly what I needed when I was first starting off. So I don't have a bunch of markers still, but I have the colors that like I use most frequently anyway. And so yeah, I think I want to get one other color that I don't have, and I can't remember what it is at this exact moment. But there's like one color that I kind of wish I had. But yeah, so now that we've gone over that, let's see what else. Alright, so now I'm going to explain how Copics actually work. Okay, so on each marker there is a chisel side here, which almost looks like a highlighter and writes just like this. And then there is a almost brush tip side. And so when you are using a Copic marker, you get to decide which side you really want to use. So yes, that's sort of the easy, super simple explanation of that. So the brush tip is obviously for like finer details or like coloring around like the outside of an outline, something like that. And then the chisel is for doing like big expansive spaces or like bigger spaces that you know, want to cover but don't want to be like super precise with, or don't need to be super precise with. And so those are the different uses and sort of the simple how Copic markers work. I'm going to go into some tips now that I personally have found while I'm using Copic markers. So let's jump into that. Okay, so I have 3 super ridiculously simple tips when it comes to just sort of using these markers in general, and actually I just thought of another one, so that one will be for free and I will use that one at the very end of this video. So stick around to the very end and I will have an extra little tip for you. So let's go ahead and let's start off with tip number 1. So this is something that I personally have found, and I don't know if it's necessarily like the right way to do it, but it actually works really well for me. And so I am kind of the person that's like, okay, well, maybe this isn't exactly right, but if it works, then does it really matter? And so yeah, we're gonna go ahead and show you this. So one thing that I have found when it comes to Copics and like filling in a space or filling in like a drawing that you've done that you want to do is, one, you should probably erase the pencil before you start drawing with the Copic, because if you want to erase the pencil at all, or if you're not going to like go over it with black, because once you put the Copic down, it's going to, your pencil is stuck there. And so if you just erase it till it's super light. That way you won't be able to see it once the Copic is down. That one's also for free. That wasn't even the free one. But yeah, so one tip that I have found when it comes to drawing, if you want your lines to be smooth and don't want it to look like, you know, normal markers where they have like lines and stuff like that, see how it's like not varied? If you want it to be like straight and not varied, then what you need to do is don't lift your marker. Keep it down on the paper and try and keep it as even as possible throughout there. That way you don't end up with these extra varied lines. It's almost all precise and simple. This is something that I really had to learn myself before. Nobody really told me how to do this, even though like I watched a bunch of videos on YouTube on how to play with Copics. So yeah, that's something that I learned personally on my own. Alright, so tip number 2 is on blending. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna start dark and go to light. So we'll start off with this dark color right here. Then we will go to, which color? This one. Alright, so one thing that I found is that I got 3 colors that are pink. I got shock, is it shock? Yeah, shock pink, I got peach, and I got tender pink all at the same time. And what I found out was that even though tender pink looks like on the cap that it is dark, lighter than peach, it is actually about the same. It actually ended up being darker than the peach was. Okay, so with the pink, we'll go in peach. And another way, that's one way to blend it, and you just sort of go over it with it. I like to go dark to light because I haven't figured out really, oops, I just totally messed with that one. But yeah, I like to go dark to light because I feel like that normally is a little bit easier to blend out than the other way around. So that's one way to blend them, and it gets pretty blended in there. Another way I've done it is to go like this and make it sort of uneven. Not the top part, but you want these bottom bits to be sort of like feathered and uneven down here. And then to go into the next color, okay, and to go through there and sort of make it equally as uneven so that it's not like a hard line. And do it again on the bottom. There you go. That way the line is a little bit like more seamless, I guess, and not as straight into it. And you can go up into the next color up on the other side too. Yeah, so then the line is a lot less like straight and sudden. So those are 2 ways that I have learned how to blend using my Copic markers. My third tip is to practice. Practice, practice, practice. Especially with that chisel tip. The chisel tip is really honestly hard to use. As you can see here, it's not even like a straight line on there, and using it, it's not like a highlighter, although it looks like it is. It's a lot of work. It's not easy to use. I've just barely learned how to use it. Like, I started using it today, as if that really adds perspective to you. So it's going to be a lot harder to use if you are not used to it, and so definitely practice with that. You may not want to practice like on a complete art piece. Maybe hold off on that just because it's very difficult to use. So I would just let you know that. And yeah, just practice making your art smooth, practice making it so that there aren't any like variations, or if you do want variations, then practice, you know, making those variations in it, you know, practice that blending in there if you don't want like straight up lines in there or like that, you know, just spend some time. Copics have a learning curve and they are not easy. So if you're going to use Copics, you got to learn how to use them, and that definitely takes a lot of practice. So yes, and our last and final tip, which this one's for free as a thank you for sticking around to the end of this video, is this tip is actually technically not a Copic tip, but it will definitely help you save some money. You don't have to buy all of these to like you don't have to buy all the Copic markers in the world to like make great art. Use what you have, use what you can, and here's the actual tip. It's you don't really need black Copic markers. So if you want to use black, get a Sharpie. Not gonna lie, it's the exact same color, it's not a big deal, and it's a lot cheaper. And if you use black in like basically every single picture like I do, then you're probably going to be better off just going straight for a brand new Sharpie than you are for a Copic marker. So that is my tip. I am not sponsored by Copic. I have no affiliation with any of these brands or anything like that. But these are just some personal things that I have learned using Copic markers, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Have a great adventure today. Bye guys.